Hi, I... I need some help. It's rather odd what I'm saying. It's really fucking impossible, insane even, but I digress. I can't shake what has happened to me in the short course of 24 hours. I was returning home late last evening from my friend Jacob's place. I was walking down the deserted city streets when I noticed a path opposite the one leading to my house. I had only recently moved into the neighborhood, and despite having adjusted to the area quickly, I wasn't familiar with every part of the neighborhood. In the dark of night, this roadway seemed even more unfamiliar. Upon examining it further, I began to get this odd feeling of uneasiness. You must understand, I am a very rational person, and normally when something of this nature happens, I become irritated at myself for feeling irrational fears. And so, I let my curiosity get the best of me, and I decided to check the corner just to prove my own horribly irrational fears wrong. As I crossed the road, the strange uneasiness was growing with every step, but so too was my determination to prove these fears wrong. Once I had reached the corner, I took a moment to compose myself, to remind myself that this feeling was nonsensical, and then continued on. Needless to say, I couldn't believe my eyes. The road was unbearably similar to the road that leads to my home. I turned back to see the supposedly correct path, only to see nothing. Only a solid brick wall remained in its place. I rubbed my eyes, thinking that the beers I had with Jacob had gotten the best of me. Maybe I had turned around in a circle and this was just a dead end. Then I looked forward again, to see a figure advancing towards me from the opposite side of the street. Something about him was familiar, eerily familiar, but the sudden shock and isolation gripped me finally. Fear and panic took over. I fled down in the opposite direction of the man as quickly as my dazed brain could allow. After fleeing for some time, I turned around to see that the figure was gone. I did my absolute best to convince myself that the figure was just another person walking the night. Oh hell, perhaps I had scared them just as much as they scared me. Minutes later, in order to ease my terror revolving around the entire experience, I began to calmly and mentally plan a to-do list for the following morning. Visit Jacob for morning coffee, pick up dry cleaning, and so on. The planning itself had done its job to make me forget the incident, because as I was in the middle of determining the best times for all these appointments, my thoughts were abruptly interrupted when I had reached a door. Subconsciously, I had made my way back to my overly cramped apartment. I walked in and cautiously navigated my way through the intricate maze of boxes left over from the recent move. Throwing my jacket to the couch, I went straight to bed, thoroughly exhausted from the nocturnal events. This morning, I awoke with the incident of the previous evening as a mere memory. After taking a shower, I was drying off when I turned to see a small box, housing several small varieties of cologne. I attempted to recall ever owning the small collection, but eventually just wrote it off as a forgotten birthday gift. Thinking I had no intention of rummaging through my boxes for my other clothes, I decided I would just wear my clothes from last night. Once I had finished throwing on my jacket, I realized that I had overslept, and had most likely left Jacob waiting. But only after a moment of guilt, I remembered that, knowing him, he probably had overslept just as well. I left the house in about half the time it would usually take me and headed down my usual path. As I was making my way down the road, I noticed that I was getting quite a few odd, if not angry, looks from the people I had passed. I brushed it off, remembering that the area was filled with gossipers, and I most likely had caused enough to talk about with my scene last night. Then something rather unexpected happened. An elderly man in a wheelchair began shouting angrily at me. He was shouting quickly and in a language I didn't fully know. Though I could barely understand anything he had said, I did catch and translate the words pig and evil. Something was terribly wrong. People seemed to look approvingly at this disgusting outburst. Unnerved, I thought to say something, but decided that to walk away from the man and his supporters was a better decision. Thinking he was obviously senile and perhaps these people were just trying to make him feel better somehow by encouraging his behavior. Trying to relax and quell any sense of irritation, I continued walking. But even away from the confrontation, I noticed that the stares and gawking continued just as they had previously. After a while, it began to agitate me to anger and frustration. But as I turned the corner of a familiar road, I forgot about all that boiling rage. As I had turned the corner, the road that I expected to be stretched in front of me just wasn't there. I tried to rub the hallucination from my eyes, but in the end, it remained. I stood there, clean and sober, staring mouth agape at another large, solid brick wall. I may have made a mistake with the other road last night, but this road towards Jacob's place, I knew for a fact should have been there. Thinking that I had made a wrong turn and gotten myself lost, I retrieved my phone from my pocket, only to discover that I had no signal. Before I had a chance to try and troubleshoot my lack of cell reception in the middle of the goddamn city, I saw a dark car coming towards me. The auto had its windows rolled down as it passed. The woman driving screamed in a heavy accent,
"Go back to the hole you came from, you fucking bastard!"
I was absolutely dumbfounded. What on earth was this foreign woman talking about? With that thought, I looked up to try and find where I was based off the street signs. I could feel the blood leave my hands and face. I hadn't noticed it before, but all the street signs were in a different language. They were in the same foreign language that the old man had spoken in. That was it. I immediately retreated home and looked for my computer. I rummaged through my boxes only to find that, while not my computer, an odd-shaped desktop and monitor were already set up in another room. I looked everywhere to ensure that I was in the right apartment. Things appeared to be exactly as mine, except it all seemed foreign. I hopped on the computer and was shocked to discover a long list of programs and files I wasn't familiar with. I clicked on several programs, unknowing what to do when the computer had opened a program labeled Mozilla, which appeared to be some sort of data search engine. I typed something out, and the engine requested if I needed a translation out of my mother tongue to this land's dominant language. I clicked the red button, hoping it would disallow the translation, and my paranoia blossoming with every link. I clicked on one that appeared to be extremely close to my language. My jaw dropped. I slowly turned and looked at my jacket. My hooked cross, here called the bent swastika, was there as always. Our national, nay, our global symbol, the one I had stood by proudly for the entirety of my existence. Here, in this place, it is the embodiment of pure evil. Here it was cast down, and our 1,000 years were cut short to a mere 12 before being toppled by the Allies. Dear God, I remember that figure that had passed me on the opposite side of that street last night. He resembled someone who was very familiar, but in my drunkenness and urgency to flee the area, I hadn't fully recognized his features then. But now, do you understand who that person was? Do you understand what has happened to us now? Whoever you are, whoever is reading this, whoever can understand this, please, I need to get back. He needs to get back. Can you help me? Please.